What two players have been grossly overrated in UConn men's basketball history? You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, just want to take a moment to say thank you to all of you. The podcast has grown immensely in the last few months, especially in December now. And we're not just talking hyperbole here, folks. As of today and throughout this week, we are currently the number one college basketball show on the Locked On Podcast Network. And it's because of fans like you who value great UConn content. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering both UConn men's and women's basketball, the hoops capital of the world, and we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. To show that gratitude, we're giving back to Husky Ticket Project, donating 10% of our revenue to them, helping send kids to UConn games all throughout this season, and we're making monthly donations to Bleeding Blue for Good, supporting NIL initiatives that make a difference. So if you're enjoying the show, take a moment to subscribe, follow, and leave a review wherever you listen. Thanks again for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. Well, in a week of holiday cheer and hanging out with friends and family, and we're counting down the days until the season restarts in the year 2025 with a game at DePaul, I wanted to take some time to reflect, as people do this time of year, and about two players who helped shape UConn basketball into the powerhouse it is today. These two guys left their marks in completely different ways, but both are absolute legends. Let's dive in. My first and probably the most underrated Husky, I think, of all time, with what he went through and how long he stayed at UConn, the accomplishments, 2 championships. To me, it's Shabazz Napier. He is one of the greatest players to ever wear a UConn jersey. His journey at UConn was built over 4 unforgettable years, and his legacy is cemented as one of the most clutch performers in college basketball history. I think my good friend Chris Smith, who dons the name of the GOAT of UConn scoring-wise, mentioned that if we had Shabazz Napier circa, whether you could pick a year, 2010, 11, 12, 13, on our team right now, on the 2024-25 season, we'd be undefeated, and we'd be the odds-on favorite to win the national championship again. That's how good Shabazz was, and his story starts in 2010. He joined UConn as a freshman. That season, he played a key supporting role on Kemba Walker's legendary 2011 championship team, coming off the bench to provide scoring energy. He had a few great games. He definitely faded towards the end of the season, and Jeremy Lamb kind of took a more front seat as the freshman. That was the Robin to UConn's Kemba's Batman, or just the secondary scorer, if you will. But there were many times in the season where you could count on Shabazz for that. And it wasn't until really 2014, after he came, that UConn was banned from the NCAA tournament in 2013. He could have left, as many did, but he stuck around, and he took over. As a senior, he became the heart and soul of the Huskies, leading them to a 4th national championship. He averaged 18 points, 5.9 rebounds, 4.9 assists, and almost 2 steals per game. Absolute ultimate leader, earning Final Four most outstanding player honors and cementing his place in UConn history. I believe he was a first-team All-American too. My biggest thing about him is my recollections of that team were, like probably everybody else's, just fun to watch, up and down results, and then they went on this run, and Shabazz just kind of took over, man. There were times where, God, I remember, I forget the context of the game. It might have been Vern Lundquist calling it, but he was just like, or it might have been, and I remember the Villanova game where I think they tied it, end of the game, Big East game, and you hear the announcer going, they don't need anything quick, and he like pulls up from like 30 feet and just drills it. Like he just had that innate killer mentality, and that's what this team needed. In 2014, he was legendary. Clutch threes, orchestrating the offense, sinking free throws, the buzzer beater against Florida at home in Gamble. Championship game against Kentucky, scored 22 points and was chill. I still remember him doing That's the indelible look of him showing that UConn jersey at the Final Four, saying like, look, this is who I am. Over his 4 years at UConn, Shabazz played 143 games, more than anyone else in the program. He leads UConn in all-time free throws made, is second in steals, third in assists, fourth in points, consensus first-team All-American in 2014, won the Bob Cousy Award as the nation's best point guard, and left UConn as one of the few two-time champions. Now we're starting to see more. Shout out Alex Karabin, Donovan Clingan, who else? Tristan Newton. The list can keep on going on and on. Andrew Hurley. What made Shabazz special wasn't just his number. It was his ability to deliver in the biggest moments. Leadership, toughness, unmatched. And he's a huge reason why UConn is regarded as one of the college basketball's elite programs, not only today, but through history, because that's what we're talking about today. All right, when we return, we're going to talk about the Israeli Larry Bird. If you don't know him, we'll get to know Nadav Henefeld. Have you ever looked at your bank statement and found charges for subscriptions you forgot or didn't even realize you had? I know I have. And that's where Rocket Money came to the rescue. It's like having your own personal finance assistant. Rocket Money found these sneaky subscriptions and canceled them for me in just a few taps. Rocket Money isn't just about canceling subscriptions. It's a personal finance app that helps you take control of your money. Whether it's finding and canceling unwanted subscriptions, monitoring your spending, or even lowering your bills, Rocket Money brings everything together in one great place. With over 5 million users and 500 million saved in canceled subscriptions, Rocket Money members save up to $740 a year using the app's premium features. For me, the subscription tracker has been a game changer. I've canceled a few services I wasn't even using anymore, and I've saved so much money, and I've used their goals feature app. It's helped me automatically set aside money for the future without stressing things like vacation, stuff like that. Take control of your finances with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Don't let those unwanted subscriptions drain your wallet. Start saving money today. Hello, my friends. The NFL playoffs are almost here, and you don't have to worry. It's not too late to get in on all the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel makes it an easy and so easy way to find different ways to win. Personally, I love betting on which players will score the first touchdown of a game, or in predicting the total points scored each team will put up, and it makes the game that much more interesting. So you're not actually rooting for an outcome of, say, the Ravens versus Houston, which we saw on Christmas Day. You can actually just pick on the total points scored, which I hit on, right? And that's just the start. You can bet on anytime touchdowns. You can bet on drive results. If you're really into live betting, they can do that, and you can actually watch it right on the same app where you place your bets. So what are you waiting for? Go to FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. It is an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn. We just talked about Shabazz Napier I still feel like he may be the most underrated UConn player of all time, considering he played all 4 years. He was a part of a championship program. It's like just stuff that you don't see that much anymore in college sports, where he was on a program that won a national championship in his freshman year, where he was a key part of it. Wasn't like a starring figure, but averaged 8 points a game. Had some nice moments in the Big East and NCAA tournament, backing up Kemba Walker, who was all-world. And then as he grew into more of a leadership role throughout the years, he takes over the program in a senior year. Could have left after the 2013 debacle, but came back with a vengeance and ended up winning another national championship. Just kudos to him and all that he did for UConn and the program for that. And then something I want to bring up another completely opposite. That's part of the reason why I picked these two players. Number 2, Nadav Henefeld. He was here for 1 year, one glorious year. And even though his time at UConn was short, his impact was massive. He played just one season during the 89-90, what's called the dream season. And it's impossible to talk about UConn's rise without mentioning him and the players, especially the players on that team, and even the players before that won the NIT. Henefeld came to UConn from Israel, where he had already served in the Army, played for the junior national team. He was a man. He was 22 years old, absolutely brought a level of maturity and experience that immediately elevated the team. In that one season, Henefeld set the NCAA freshman record with 138 steals, a record that still stands today. He averaged 11.6 points, 5.6 rebounds, and 3 assists, and an incredible 3.7 steals per game. He was an absolute defensive juggernaut, seemingly everywhere on the court in Jim Calhoun's vaunted press that year, disrupting passing lanes, making plays on both ends of the floor. That year, Henefeld helped UConn to its first ever Big East regular season tournament titles, as well as its first Elite Eight appearance. His impact was immediate and undeniable. His energy and basketball IQ were infectious. Henefeld's influence went beyond the court. He became a cultural icon. There were Israeli flags waving in the stands, fans chanting his name every time he made a big play. His story inspired pride in not just Connecticut, but across the Jewish community in Israel, in the U.S., and in Israel. And in almost like a sad way, it was 1 year for him. He was 22 years old. He didn't need to spend any more time playing in the States. He always wanted to go back. And the crazy thing for me is he almost never came to UConn. He was supposed to go to St. John's. And when he went to the campus, if you don't know St. John's campus, and I'm not talking smack about St. John's campus, but it is, and it always has been, kind of a unique situation. It's not really a campus atmosphere. You're in Queens. You're surrounded by a hustle and bustle of the city. And it's Queens, though. It's not like you're in Manhattan. No disrespect to Queens. I lived there for 3 years. So it's just not the vibe that he wanted, right? So when he came to Stores, I remember even from interviews from Matt Edwards' Dream Season pod, talking about how he said, it just felt like home. There was trees and grass, and it just didn't feel as crazy, right? It was more his speed. And if you knew anything about Nadav, chill. Like, nothing about him said New York City. That's just my take on it, and it ended up being the truth. After the Dream Season, after that heartbreaking loss to Duke in the Elite Eight, where I found my hatred for the Duke Blue Devils grew to an exponential level, he decided to return to Israel. He played 12 years for Maccabi Tel Aviv, their best team there. He led the team to multiple championships and captured that and helped them capture multiple EuroLeague titles, and especially one in 2001. He has always said his time at UConn was one of the most special experiences of his life. And I'm here to tell him that it was one of the most special experiences of our lives, watching him play, even for me as a kid, 9 years old, using his name to shoot jumpers. And every time I would steal a ball, I would say that. Nadav. And also there were other guys on that team. Tate George stole the ball, Scott Burrell. That team defensively was so good. It just pains me that we didn't get to the Final Four, because I don't know if we beat UNLV that year, but I think we give them a better run than Duke did in the final. I digress. I'll always remember it as a key part of the program's early success and one of my favorite players. So this has been a mini pod. I know you guys probably listened to the Road Warriors episode with Mal talking about the guys on the road to Butler. So if you listen to that, awesome. If you haven't yet, go check that out. So if just to recap this, I wanted to just do a quick little podcast this morning or this afternoon to represent two players that I think about all the time about why this program is where it's at. Shabazz Napier, two-time champion, ultimate clutch performer. Nadav Henefeld, the one-year wonder phenom who helped launch the Dream Season, and I think might have been the final piece of that Dream Season that made them so special and a title contender that came so close to being in the Final Four. Two very different players, two incredible legacies, both pivotal to UConn's rise to the top of college basketball. With the season about to kickstart again, it's always good to remember the players who paved the way. I will always do stuff like this. Two legends, two different stories, prove that UConn's past is as special as its future. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto. Follow us on Apple, Spotify. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's all. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and a great weekend. And we'll be back on Monday. Go Huskies.